platform where we have conversations, talk to each other, and also speak to some of our leaders on issues that are social, economical, and also technically that are happening in the country. So this is to ensure that sometimes some of the issues are addressed through this forum, or even you get some of the answers. And also it's more like a civic engagement center where you get to learn so many things. And we feature different people always in this forum. People with technical knowledge. For example, today we have David Ayuel. He's the representative of the young people at the National Constitutional Amendment Committee. This is a body which is part of the peace agreement, and we all know what NCSC does. Or if you don't know, he's going to briefly tell you about the mandate of also NCSC. Sometimes you might be facing challenges with issues of taxes, and you're wondering, how can we have our voices heard? He's the right person to ensure those laws favor some of those issues are addressed as well. And then also we have Zabib Musa. He's a human rights and gender advocate. He has done a lot of work when it comes to human rights and also issues around gender, which is of course men and women. But as we know, the shift of gender sometimes goes to women because majority of the issues are coming from the side of women. That's why the focus has gone to women. So to focus on today's conversation, we're going to try and stick to at least an hour. And this is also going to depend on if you're not going to ask too many questions. Yeah, during the Q&A session. So as we all know, the Sudan is just like part of us. We're one time one country. And the conflict in Sudan is basically will affect us in one way or the other. One, given the fact that we have our oil pipeline passing through Sudan, and we also have our upper space being controlled by Sudan. So, and then being our neighbor, we must be anticipating so many things around that area. And then also looking at the peace agreement, it's been implemented. Now we have the roadmap, it's been extended. So, like, these are all critical issues. Sudan, the peace agreement, the roadmap, and then we have the permanent constitution making process. This is going, we have been working on transitional constitution. It's the first time that we want to have our own permanent constitution. But then, how do you ensure that everyone's voice is actually heard in the permanent constitution? And this is where our today's emphasis or topic is going to focus. So I'm going to actually start straight away with my questions. And it can either be David or Zabib, you're going to answer this. Some of the questions there are some planned for Edmond, but I think as leaders, I believe you're prepared at any time. So one thing I'll look at generally the geopolitics of the region, okay? So one, I'll look at Sudan. We all know that Abu Khan is the and when you look at now, he's busy engaged with conflict in Sudan. That is one. When you look at Kenya also, their crisis between Ruto and Raila happening, and then also look at Uganda, which is the same thing. And this draws the question of, we people used to talk about the African solutions to African problems. And looking at IGAD, people are questioning IGAD and also AU on that. What do you think would be done to address some of these issues? David.
Okay, thank you very much. First thing, I am excited to be back to this podium because I remember when we started Daniel's show at Notos, I remember I was hosted something or last year or 2021. So, and another excitement is that I'm seated in the middle of these two beautiful and brilliant women. It's something that I must appreciate. And to all of you members that have joined today to listen to us in our discussion, it's really very important to say I am privileged to be part of this. Well, I want to start with what I do at NCC. NCC is a body like one of the mechanisms for the implementation of the peace agreement, mandated to review national legislations, and also part of it was to review the Constitutional Making Act, which was passed for the constitution making. So far, NC also reviewed National Police Act, Wildlife Act, and several of those acts. I may not mention both in security laws for also in the financial reform sector, issues to do with the public Financial Management Act, Bank of South Sudan Act, Banking Act, petroleum laws, and name it. We've reviewed all those things. Initially, my work as the youth rep is to collect views from the young people and table them in the NCC regarding any law that is being reviewed, and so that they are put into consideration. And I also want to thank Judith for being this big part of support from our workplace that has enabled young people to be part of it. Coming to the question, we all know as South Sudanese that Sudan is a grantor to our peace. Kenya is a grantor to our peace. The same thing with Uganda. And if you ask me that what are some of the solutions to us, our problems emanate from us. And we believe that they can be solved by us. Although they can be solved by us through a process that also emanates from us. What am I trying to say? Recently, President of Kenya, Ruto, if I remember very well, he made a statement in Mo Ibrahim program in Nairobi, and he said, our issues as Africans have to be solved by us. But it's hard that we can solve our own issues because the solutions to our issues are financed by different people, so it becomes very hard. Now, our solutions to our problems is not very far. Solutions to our problem is our own leaders taking up the responsibility of knowing that they are leading people and they are leading institutions, and deviate away from institutions and let the will of the people prevail first and putting that forward. I think it's one of the proper solutions that we have to our problems. The second, like when people sit down, there should be a mechanism of how those agreed resolutions should be implemented. And in that, there need to be particular actions that are to be followed if a certain party is not following what they agreed. Because people sign agreements and sign with signatures and all that. But
I would say that when an agreement is signed, it is implemented, and it's not just a matter of signing, but then you need to pause and follow up with whether that is actually implemented. I would also look at RJMEC, which offers recommendations to IGAD, and then currently IGAD is actually the head of IGAD is easily engaged in conflict. How do you ensure that they can still ensure the RTO implements the decision?
yes, this is a very good question. And this is something we were talking, I think, today with my friend Patrick William and colleagues, that our problem, particularly at South Sudan now, let me focus on why the 2015 agreement was not implemented as signed. 2018 agreement was not implemented as signed. The roadmap of 2022 is not implemented. It is 10 months now, not implemented as signed. And probably we might have another revitalized roadmap soon coming out. So you find out, you ask yourself, if these people are signing all these agreements and they are not being implemented, what could have been the problem? And when you go back and look at the gap, it's that the implementation mechanism lack what we call enforcement of what has been signed. Because if you sign something, what happens if you don't implement that? So RJMEC is just a body that does the reporting, monitoring, and evaluation.
Should now look at the other part of the loss when the conflict persists, when the conflict is that continues. We see IGAD as, for me, IGAD is a different body, a body that no longer has that. Yes, they are a body that supervises us, but the fact that they have been in this process and not holding perpetrators accountable means that for South Sudan to have this, then South Sudan could probably talk to have the other bodies, the international bodies, and that should be done not directly with us, South Sudan, or our leaders, because our leaders are not different from IGAD. So we see the potential buyers, our customers who take our oil, the likes of Malaysia, the likes of China, the big buyers. They are internationalized outside, including India and others. These bodies, these buyers, because they are people who also inject money into the international communities, let them have a conversation with the international community on finding a better solution for Sudan. Because Sudan being safe means that here our people will be focused. Of course, as we speak, the focus has gone. It was already taken, but now it was worsened with the Sudan conflict. So we really need that conversation to start happening. We want to see the international community coming in. We've seen the talks of ceasefire and conversations on having Sudan getting back to, to cool the situation, and we've seen nothing happening. Yeah, so it's important that such conversations begin and our leaders start looking beyond. Otherwise, for South Sudan, we will have nothing much to do because us and Sudan, we are not different. And the fight is in Sudan is a brother to brother fight. We've ever had a brother to brother fight that has taken the country to where it is.
Okay, I'm just going to pick up actually from that part of Sudan. Also, given the fact that currently our oil passes through Sudan, the fight what do we expect from the conflict continues? What will be the impact of the conflict as South Sudan?
Yeah. On our economy, the situation has worsened even just in 6 weeks since the start of the conflict. Already we have a very bad situation in our community and in the country. And seeing that our pipelines will, those ones that pass through Sudan, we don't know, maybe they will be bombed anytime or they will be closed down because of conflict, and also possibility that maybe the international communities who buy our oil say that we are not going to buy South Sudan oil because of the conflict that is in Sudan. Yeah? So we will have, our economy will go to the worst. We are already suffering influx of the currencies. Our SSP has become very useless these 6 weeks. The markets are very expensive, so the government really has to look at a solution. And what is the solution? We are not farming in South Sudan, and it is worse that there are no rains this year. We've not seen that rain that usually comes within this time. We already have our crops and all this. So government needs to provide security. The people, they need to also control this money. This money can be controlled. It's just that our leaders have just chosen to sell their people. So just let the people see, and they continue enjoying their seats. But looking at that, I'll say that we need our parliament to stand strong. I know that they need us to tell them, and now we are telling them that parliamentarians, you need to stand strong and push the government. You have a role to play. Our ministers have a very big role to play. The presidency itself should not sit there and keep quiet. They have a role to play in, protecting the people of South Sudan, and also protecting us from going into that hunger that people are already dying from. We've seen the women carrying the brunt so much. Women and children have already started starving in places worse than before. You look at places like Wow, the korofo that was of 300, today you can't buy it and feed it to 2 children, like yourself. It's very expensive. So these are things that would have been grown more if security was there. So much as Sudan is fighting, We need our security as people of South Sudan. We need to be protected.
So looking at the parliament, these are people who, especially the members of parliament, they represent the citizen. And most of the issues that are facing citizens would have been tabled by the parliament. How do you ensure that the parliamentarians are actually should be in position to play their role effectively?
One thing is that every time you ask a parliamentarian why they are not um, doing things right and quick, they will either tell you that when we sit there, if it's a woman, they'll say, we are usually, our voices are not so much heard. There is that marginalization that happens within the parliament also. That is on the side of women who would have pushed for policies like, let's say, the anti-GBV that has been delayed for all these years, the family law that is still hanging. These are things that they would have requested even in absentia. They say, government, this is what we need to do. But they are not doing that. We find that the other gender that we have in parliament also will tell you that even if we talk, there is nothing can happen. The country is still in crisis. And remember, when we are in transition, you also believe that you also have to understand that in transition, when governments are in transition, there is nothing much that they usually do.
When you say that the parliamentarians complain of being marginalized, do they need to be advocated for their rights from the civil society perspective?
That is something that the civil society are doing, and especially the women rights organizations and maybe the youth organizations are already doing that, trying to capacitate the parliament. But also the problem is that there is that changes. There are changes that happen within the parliament that we also don't know. You train someone, 3 months, 6 months, this person has been replaced by a relative, has been replaced by a friend, then you have to go back to the retraining. But the other thing is that also I think they are not taken care of. There is the way all civil servants are suffering, they are also not getting that pay. And it's because they are not opening their mouth. You want to keep your seat, you decide to go hungry.
David, you have something to add?
Yeah, I want to disagree with that
Okay.
on the issue of saying the parliamentarians are not taken care of. But before I go to that, Judith, do we have a parliament?
Yeah.
Because no, we don't have a parliament. Yes, we have a renovated building, and we have a reconstituted parliament, as people say, because the peace agreement brought in parliamentarians to be appointed. It's something that's never happened before. And it brings us back to the reason why a certain portion of the agreement is implemented. Because if the part of appointing members of parliament was not implemented just like the way other things are not being implemented now, we will not be having a parliament, isn't it? So the current parliament, as per what I know from the parliament works on checks and balances of the government and has powers to summon ministers who are not performing, has powers to summon anybody, including the president. Has our parliament never done that?
Yeah, they impeached the speaker. They were planning to impeach the speaker.
Okay, good. You say they are planning. They have summoned recently.
Exactly,
Yes,
yeah.
the committee has been summoning. Now, what am I trying to say is this: the issues of parliament, as we are saying, parliamentarians are taken care of. We have never seen people in the civil departments getting paid, but parliamentarians have been paid. Even previously, before it was yes, they had received car loans. Recently, they received a portion of their 15,000. Civil servants some are still struggling to get their pay up to this time. That's why I'm trying to disagree with my colleague that they are actually taken care of. Some of them are driving V8s. We don't know how they are getting it. Their parties are also taking care of some of them. They are holding big phones like this that are more bigger than mine. I don't want to get to that. What I want to say is this: if our parliament was really on track, they should have been summoning bodies that are responsible in peace implementation. But they are restricted to their parties because they are appointed by those parties. Should someone stand up in parliament and when to act on a proper way, they'll be kicked out. I don't want to mention them, but you have seen so many MPs who would want to stand for the interests of the citizens rather than the interests of parties who have been kicked out of parliament. So to me, if I say we don't have a parliament, that is my opinion, because a parliament would not stand because of a political party. Yes, I know they stand, you get a ticket to go on a political party. But if they were voted by the citizens from their constituencies, each and every member would be standing for the interests of their constituency members. But now their constituencies are what? Are parties. So they are standing with their constituencies, which are parties.
Okay, and this brings the question of when we are looking at the parliament's structure, okay, and then also I'll relate this now to your role at the National Constitutional Amendment Committee. You've done a lot of amendment to the legislations, and then also looking at the roadmap. People already talking about elections, which is next year, and then before the elections, we need the permanent constitution. And this is where most of the issues are supposed to be addressed. Looking at the the bill for the permanent constitution bill. So when you critically look at that, the appointments are basically like, for example, 100 from each state and also 30 from the administrative areas. How are you going to ensure that young people, the right young people, are going to be represented in the final conference? Because this is where the final decision is going to be made. But then how do you ensure we have the right people at that conference?
Is that question to me?
Yeah, that's
So the law is very clear in the Act. It has given each and every stakeholder and political parties their representation in the national conference. If I remember very well, it goes to 1,000 people.
yeah.
So in that conference, it is something that you cannot deviate. It's what the law has said, and the law is enacted. So it is upon the stakeholders. For example, let me speak on the youth. If the youth are given a portion, 500 people to be there, or 18, just let's take for example, then it is upon the body, the constituency of youth, to send people who are vibrant, people who will not just sleep, but people who will research and also take the views of young people and present them in that context. But if you ask me about increasing the number, it will be quite difficult because the agreement has clearly stated on a number that is to be given, and that is what is enacted in the law. So it will be basically based on the numbers. And only if stakeholders are too smart, like women, youth, people with disabilities, and faith group, those that are non-participant in the conflict, or those are non-political members, they can only form a serious coalition toward the constitutional making process, where they can emerge as all the delegates of these constituencies who are non-political actors and present themselves during that conference clearly with their objectives and all the things that need to be enshrined in the constitution. I think that is the best way we can make young people, women, people with disability, and faith-based participate in the constitution.
And then also talking about the idea of the youth. Until now, the youth development policy has not been passed. How are we going to become the youth? I've ever witnessed a conference where I've seen elders sitting in the position of youth. How are we going to ensure that we have the youth in the bracket of the youth without a policy?
This is a very good question. As we speak now, the constitution does not define who the transitional constitution of the Republic of South Sudan, 2011 as amended, does not clearly tell you who youth is, which has given an opportunity, it has given a room for all these people who claim to be youth to take up the spaces. Even us in the civil society, some of us are exiting very soon, but there are those who will not want to leave, and because there is no any legal framework that defines who a youth is. So that document is very important, but it is slipping in the hands of the authorities, both parliament and the ministries. So you are saying if the constitutional process is beginning and this document is not passed, how is it possible? The act itself has defined a number of portion that is granted to youth to participate in the constitutional law. But it comes back to the question, who are those youth that are asked by the act to participate? If you come to us in the civil society organizations, we have legal frameworks that can determine that. One is we're a member state of African Union, and the African Youth Charter defines a young person as 18 to 35. The UN policies define a young person as 15, a youth as 15 to 24. So you can see how it comes in. But if you go to the political space, political areas, maybe in political parties, there's a way they define the youth according to their party charters or party constitutions. Maybe they even pull it to 50 or even to 49. It depends with them. So when we are coming back to this participation, the peace agreement has bodies that are signatories, like from the stakeholders. For example, for the youth, let me focus on my constituency. South Sudan Youth Organization Coalition sent the representative to the peace agreement, and Dr. Emily signed on behalf of the youth, making it an institution that directly now participates in the youth mechanism. So if they are to be asked to nominate people, then they should be putting it in the charter of the South Sudan Youth Organization Coalition that whoever that is going must be somebody that is less than 35, not and above.
Okay, I'll get back to you on that. Zabib, you've been a gender advocate, and in the past 3 weeks, I had the chance to travel to at least 3 of the states. And when you look at most of the communal conflicts, are related to issues of gender-based violence. Last week, I was in one of the locations to launch one of the traditional court authorities for trying some of the cases. But then, the report still presents that. But then, when you look at issues related to gender-based violence, cultural norms play a very huge part in that. And then also looking at that, there's no proper law on gender-based violence to govern that, though we are relying on the constitution, which is supreme for now. How do you ensure that issues of gender-based violence are adequately addressed in line with our cultures and norms? Because sometimes some of these issues, when you get to the grassroots level, it's quite different from the national setting. There are communities who are very comfortable being beaten as a sign of love, and they're okay with that. But then sometimes you're advocating this is domestic violence, but that victim is actually happy about that. So how do you address this of gender-based violence in line with our norms and cultures?
Yeah, thank you. So that's a huge question. First of all, I would say that the advocacy has been going on for a while, and our cultures are so deeply rooted in our communities. And the issue of culture is something that we may not break today or tomorrow, but gradually, with having our women educated about their rights, first of all, having the girls educated about their rights, at least it's fine for those who have been held accountable. They have felt the consequences of abusing a woman or abusing a girl. The only perpetrators accountable is the other. When we come to the policy bit of it, is we have been advocating so much. We had the CEDAW that the government and us ratified and adopted in South Sudan. And since 2015, the implementation has been very slow. But then something has gone. And we have the recent ratification for the Maputo Protocol. The Maputo Protocol is more of an African CEDAW, looking at the whole international CEDAW, that is international. So breaking it down is looking at the Maputo Protocol. Pushing so hard to have the family law in place as one protection, one document that will protect women from the family law, because most of the violences that happen from the family itself. And that's where we find that when girls come from very violent homes and boys, they also possibly become violent adults and also continue to build violent families, and then the cycle continues. We find that the whole community is polluted. So right now is Ministry of Gender and the civil society plus stakeholders like UNDP have worked on the first draft of the family law. And the family law actually moved from UNDP to Ministry of Gender. And we hope that when this document comes out, and then communities will be educated about that document. Because inside the family law has issues to do with bride price, issues to do with education, issues to do with reproductive health, issues to do with choice, the right to choose a family, everything has been discussed within the family law. And that is one way of implementing the Maputo Protocol. So that document, we hope that it comes to pass in the next few months. Then it will help us hold perpetrators or educate our communities, even down in the grassroots, tell them about this. So, and again, I'm happy to say that we are working on the launch of the Maputo Protocol, and we want colleagues, the youth, the women, the lawmakers, and everybody to celebrate with us. And during that celebration, we hope also to give to show everybody the roadmap for the implementation of the Maputo Protocol in South Sudan. And that's why we have laid some of the policies that needs to come to pass, that need to be passed within 1 year, others 2 years, and different other things. And also including the awareness bit.
Okay, and when you talk about the different policies, to address that, currently they are under review or development, but we also know that at the grassroots level, sometimes these conversations do not reach there. And looking at also South Sudan, if you travel most of the places, you find out the cultures are quite different. Yeah, in the different communities. What happens in this community does not happen in the other community as well. So how do you ensure that we have laws that address those different issues within the communities? Given the fact that we have the GBV code, yeah, which is here, but then still the number of cases are increasing. Does that mean that we are dealing with the symptoms instead of the root causes?
That has been the issue, and you're not part of the truth. Much of the response has been happening at the project level, where you just come and implement something very quickly. You have a report to write. So the other thing is us, the implementers and our fellows of we need to look at GBV beyond implementing just a project. We need to bring home some of these implementations. Some of these things require families to be educated on positive parenting. Positive parenting including you don't fight in front of children. You don't just come and hit your wife, abuse your wife, or abuse your husband in front of children. That mutual, that respect among parents is important because it is one of the first steps that children pick from. The other thing is, I would say that looking at the anti-GBV, some of these policies will be very difficult to implement, as you noted that our cultures are very tough. If you talk of the reproductive health act, the reproductive health bill that we will want to have, a reproductive health maybe bill or policy that will allow a woman to choose how many children she wants to have, or to decide on when to have the sex. The anti-GBV bill itself, if it's enacted, perpetrators are going to defend themselves that it's our culture. In our culture, we rape if we are to have a girl as a wife, So there is that education that needs to happen and a lot of processes. And by the way, at times I just tell myself that probably the anti-GBV bill is stuck because so many people, so many of the leaders in there look at it and see that some of these things, many of them are perpetrators, even the cultures that we all come from. So the education needs to start. So it's going to be very difficult, but we need to educate people from the grassroots to the toppest of the nation. It means that everybody needs to be educated about the importance of having this bill, the importance of having a family law, because it also takes us to issues of participation. I will clearly tell you that resilience and you might be beaten, abused, and all this happens to you, and so you still pretend to be fine and you go to work. But when you're going through all these abuses, your productivity goes down and down and down. We have a whole lot of people who are dealing with mental health, and especially women. This limits them from participating in a lot of national development programs. And so that's one reason that we need to present them. Our girls in school, the fact that a girl is raped and she's told that when you are raped, you keep quiet. She will keep quiet, but she will deal with the trauma. She will go to school and she will not do anything. So these are some of the things that
Okay, and this brings the follow-on question of we have the current permanent restitution making process, and you've talked about the anti-GBV law being start.
maybe we are just cohabiting, something like that. We might have a child in this relationship. How do we handle this child? Some of these things need to be clear, and also the family law will explain more on how this all works.
Okay, thank you. And David Ayuel, you're a member of the National Constitutional Amendment Committee, and currently the mandate of the NCAC has come to an end, including also UK is a protesting. So what's going to happen to the remaining legislations?
All right. This is the question that I would want to answer. Members of the NCAC, before I joined last year in July, because I replaced my colleague, my friend Wani Mainde, NCAC has been in existence since 2018. Now, it is comprised of 15 members, political parties, non-political actors like youth, women, and civil society. So, basically, initially, they are supposed to be paid by government.
All this
Facilitation, yes, apart from the international members, because we are people facilitated by IGAD, like the chairperson was nominated by IGAD from Kenya, the deputy is from Sudan, and then the secretariat also sits separate from the national members. So the national members, that is comprised of political members representing political parties and people from the civil society, women, youth, are supposed to be facilitated by the government. Normally, NCAC sits like this. NCAC sits thrice in a week, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, to review all these laws. You go to work at 8, you leave work at 6. You are doing comparative analysis, you are reading these laws from this other country, all these things. In a week, you have 3 days when your head is down. Okay? All these people who are in the NCAC are experts. Political parties actually nominated very competently, who are experts and who are South Sudanese. Now, these people have been working for nearly 5 years without any pay. Leave us who just joined recently. And because you are from a civil society background, you will not even mind whether that money is there or not. You have an agenda that you're looking for. But of course, these people who are not facilitated, how do they go to work in the morning? How do they feed their families? Nearly 5 years, government has not been paying them. There is what we call peace fund that has been generated and they're supposed to be paid. NCAC is not being paid, CITISAM is not being paid, other mechanisms are not being paid. But the whole attention by government is directed to gradation of security forces, which is not bad. But what about other mechanisms? Now, this is the reason why NCAC felt we have done a big work as nationalists, we have done so much, but our time is coming to an end on the 18th of May. We actually started demanding when it is 1 month before our time come to expire. And the government does not respond. So what the members did was to lay down tools and wait and see how the government can respond. Up to now, as we speak, there is never any response. So if you ask me what is going to happen, there are about 6 legislations. But the NCC has done so much work in this period. If you've seen all these legislations that are in the media, President has ascended to this has been passed by Parliament. This is the work NCC has been doing without anything. Now, we are left with most important laws, pension fund, that we believe it is very important in this country, has not been reviewed. National Revenue Act has been in the pipeline to be reviewed, but it is stopped in the middle. We have what we call Mining Act, Transportation, National Communication Act, National Investment Act, all these things, including the Labor Act, these ones are not reviewed. And most of these laws that are reviewed, we believe they are for the reform, as it is said in the peace agreement. Now, our mandate came to an end on the 18th of May, which was last week. So what happened? You asked me what is going to happen. What is going to happen is we're in our homes, and I was recently, my colleague reminded me, Patrick Godi, he sits in the LGM, and he said, look, we received information that NCAC is seeking an extension. I said, okay, that is not bad, but the extension should also come with the extension of the pay, which we believe it is going to work out. So honestly, those laws are not reviewed, and the NCAC is not working as we speak now. Not until maybe if the government call and say, we have extended your time and we are paying you, depending on what they say with us. But they have never even called us on a negotiation table. It is the same as who laid down tools that are running in the offices, knocking doors. Hey, we have laid down tools. What can we do? But nobody is calling us, why have you laid down tools? So this brings us back to the question, is our country really ready for reforms? Because if we are ready for reforms, then certain things need to have been expedited. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I think at this point, I should open the floor for Q&A.
Okay, so are we together? Yeah, we are. Okay, see, people are now looking at their time. So thank you guys so much for this video presentation. We are going to take maybe like 2, 1, 2, and then we do another 2, 1, 3, right? But then just as we are having this conversation, I think I'm very sure even our panelists would be happy to hear questions about Sudan. You know, with the war going on, there is a big potential of Sudan being a hub for extreme group, which of course, as a neighbor, that will definitely affect a lot of things that are happening in South Sudan. But also, we know that a lot of our generals in South Sudan have their allegiance to some forces in one of the warring parties in Sudan, right? So even how that may affect the process, I'm very sure our panelists want to hear questions about that. And in the extreme idea, if we are to dream, or if we are allowed to dream in South Sudan, popular uprising, influenced by things that are happening in Sudan. But I'm not going to ask questions. It's you who are going to ask questions. So we're going to take, we're going to take 2 from here, 1, 2, and then we do another 2, 1, 1, right? Okay.
Yeah. Today I felt like I'm listening to people maybe talking from the TV as they say, or from elsewhere. Well done. My first question is about the issues of the border, and it has been clearly mentioned that And that's the reality. When you look at Central African Republic, we have issues. When you look at the DRC, we have issues. Now, with Sudan and Ethiopia, we have been having issues. Even with Uganda, we have been having issues of borders and so on, if you look at the Eastern Equatoria part. So, do we see any kind of conversation maybe that can bring something that can work for us with the diaspora? Because I'm looking at it that maybe within the country we are messed up. We cannot come with something that can work. Maybe we may be having different kind of interests as well. Do you see us that we can have a conversation with maybe our people that are in the diaspora, maybe comment that, and if any, what kind of conversations do you think we need to have about the security issues? Because in the border, there will be trafficking in the border. There are a lot of things, even recruitment. Yes, remember when Idi Amin was the president of Uganda, he recruited many South Sudanese and people even from the Democratic Republic of Congo to achieve his cause in Uganda. That's the first question. And the second question here is, we're all welcome back from the Transitional Justice Conference. Is something interestingly being shifted from the Justice Ministry to the Cabinet Affairs Ministry. So that has happened and is already gone. I'm yet to figure out the clear resolutions from the conference. But the question here is, don't you see a danger that we may wake up like one day and then we say, today we are having a conference at Freedom Hall, and this is a conference on the permanent constitution, the permanent constitution, and then from there we say 300 people have been invited to Freedom Hall and we have signed the constitution. Maybe one of us can even be invited to be, as usual, to sign on behalf of the civil society. Are we not seeing that kind of a danger? Are we not seeing that it may be intentional, that even the National Amendment Committee should not be well catered for? Do we see that? Do we see something like that? And if there is any help that we can give to the National Amendment Committee, what help do you need from us as the civil society regarding your unpaid arrears? Is there anything you need from us anyway? Thank you.
Jump into it, right? Direct. So yes, you're welcome.
Very much for these questions, and I will respond to a few, and my colleague will as well put our opinion. The first question is, do we see any discussions with the people from diaspora, and what kind of conversations can we have? I think Victor asked that regarding people in diaspora play a very big factor in the development of the nation and also in building substantial peace in the country. And if you look, for example, back to our history, when we were getting our independence and even going for the referendum, our members in diaspora played a very big role. And I think it is right that we can engage them in conversations so that they can still extend their support. Because in diaspora, we have people who are experts in different professions. For example, we're speaking about constitution making. We have South Sudanese who are living in diaspora, and they must have learned a lot and they have gained so much experience and also be in the profession as well, which we believe they can contribute to the process of the constitution making or any of its kind in the country. So I think the way we can engage them is having more on the civic discussions, whether on a virtual platform, online, or even physically inviting them to the country. It's something that is very important. Recently, when we were doing the Youth Monthly Forum, I remember Judith as one of the partners. We invited one of the ladies who is doing entrepreneurship in the US and Canada, and she spoke to the young people virtually online, which motivated so much of these young people to participate. And that kind of contribution make the people who are living in diaspora feel they are more connected back home and they can also bring change. So we can engage them in such platform. The other question is, do you see any danger of waking up in the morning and you find a constitution? already there are rumors that the constitutional text is being devolved. Okay, so that question, that kind of question, I will not be surprised that I wake up in the morning and then I see in the TV there's a constitution announced, because it happened with the issue of the roadmap. Few of you might be mobilized in the night and be made part of that to validate that very process. So I'm not in any way surprised to that. And of course, I can say yes, there is a danger. If you can see the whole process of transitional justice being moved away from where it is supposed to be rooted to a different angle, I don't want to talk about that. If such things can be moved in the broad daylight, that means even the constitution making process can be removed. Even in the NCSE, the political party members always approach people from the civil society, us and women and civil society, that you guys, you are not doing what you always do. You are always on government neck. They have not done it. Now that we are not being paid, shoulder the responsibility and call out. So I think you can also do that as civil society. Please call for them so that they can pay us. What can we do to stop African problems by not being influenced by external factors? Honestly, I agree with you that every conflict has factors, whether internal or external. There are always factors. But ask yourself one question one time that get influenced and fight. And then we keep on blaming it. We are fighting because of other people. If we know that we are fighting because of other people, why are we fighting? So first, the biggest blame starts with us Africans. When we are in the system, when we are ruling our country, when we are electing our leaders, I don't think there are international communities that come and elect leaders. Even those leaders that take power by coup or through liberation, they are not brought in by international communities. They are brought in by us. So what happens is, issues of international community, if we say we don't want to be influenced by international factors, we cannot be influenced. But the fact that we bring in hyenas to take care of goats, as said by professors, goats within their own fence. This is the system. But if we believe we want to do this, it begins from the universities, it begins from the family level, it begins from individuals, that we are taking our responsibilities and you should not in any way be influenced. Look at our context now in South Sudan, leave alone even international communities. To the extent that young person who has gone to school with a university degree, your uncle still influence you in the village to think the way he is, to tell you that the government is ours. We are the Dinka and the president is Dinka. It is our government. The rest of the people are not there. And then you take it, tomorrow you are driving a V8, that's it. So this is how we get confused. Then at the end of the day, there are no clear indicators of how international community influence our problems. Instead, we influence our problem and run out and look for proper support so that you come and divide your own people in your ethnicity. And you will find, of course, those lions that have their interests in you, and they will influence that process. So how we can do that is by starting with us, not getting influenced in any way. To give my colleague chance, I want to come to the issue of government providing subsidized food in the village. You clearly stated and explained very well how people are suffering. You yourself. I thought you were going to ask a question. Now, I would ask you a question. What is the role of a government in a country? The country that is importing this food, where we're getting the food from, is a country just like us. It has citizens the way we have citizens. They are cultivating in their country properly, and they are bringing it. Perhaps their government could have had proper ways of encouraging people to cultivate. Our government might not be doing that. Security could be a problem. What is bringing the security? Where is it starting from? It's starting with the government. When they disagree, people cannot work and farm. If the government goes and export food and comes and store it in the villages so that it's subsidized and people buy it, I don't think I can agree with that. It's not a good idea. Because the good idea would be a proper government that stands for the interests of each nation would discourage people from going out and bringing food. Instead, farming and export food. Today we don't export anything in South Sudan. Nothing. Apart from we are too proud to say we have oil that we export. And when this oil is exported, how is it even exported? Some countries export tea leaf. Some countries export so many of the things. And then again, we also want to blame we're a landlocked country. How many landlocked countries are in the region and they're prospering? It is the issue of leadership and governance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to speak on first with regards to the border security issues and potentially how it will affect us. I'd say that if this government itself, which is already vulnerable to its own domestic security, fails to pay attention to what is happening in Sudan. Because we will say that our relationship with the Sudan, or our leaders' relationship with the Sudan, is a relationship that is a sister or a brother to brother or sister relationship. And I hope that we are safe. Yes, we are safe. If the government fails to take on the lead of guiding this situation, this will force people to support. We have our own people who will support, who will force even to support the warring parties themselves in the Sudan. From among the rivaling parties within South Sudan, just so that they continue to create chaos, and then they have a bigger chance of buying their ammunition, restocking their stock that had gone down, and having the government on its toes. Then you see that when that starts to happen, you realize that you find that maybe the president himself is supporting one side and then the opposition supports the other side. So it will be a fight within us, and the trafficking issues to do with storing ammunition will happen in South Sudan. And I have always believed that South Sudan is a hub to so many insecurity attacks. Not attacks, insecurity, I don't know what to call it, but issues. Then I see that I have a belief that we have people coming into the country. Nobody's monitoring. We have business people who are coming into the country. Who knows what they come with? I don't want to name any of them at the moment, but we know that people come, and where they come from, people come from parts of Somalia, people come from Kenya, people come from Uganda, people come from the Congo. We have Rwanda. We are in the center, we are very vulnerable. We welcome each and everybody, and as long as you come with money and you're coming to do business in South Sudan, and you are also going to give a 30% to one of the top guys, then there's no problem. Whatever business you're doing is okay. We've started seeing the advance of jobs in the US, jobs in Canada. Are you a South Sudanese? Jobs for South Sudanese in the US and all this. Who knows? Who knows? Or maybe we've already been sold and we don't know. We'll realize when we are in the ship going. Yeah? So these are issues that will be actually added to the issues with the conflict in Sudan. The more it goes on, the more our people are going to be trafficked, and the human resource, the little human resource that we have, will be taken away from us. When I come to issues of food, government cannot, of course, provide for us food. And again, food is so expensive in the region. The grain prices are going very high now in the region because of the conflicts that are happening in the different parts of the region. So even those who buy for us usually free food, I think are somehow overwhelmed with buying food for South Sudanese who never think of preparing their own ground for farming. So that is our own internal responsibility, and our government has a responsibility of enabling an environment for people to go and cultivate. We have places like here, we have Magri, we have the Torit side. We have so many places that can grow plenty of food that we can eat and even export. So we leave it to them. But us as civil society and the young people, we'll have to continue to push and ask the government to do what they are supposed to do. And then how are women prepared? I don't think women were prepared. The women were never prepared with the issues of with the insecurity that is happening in the Sudan or the fights. We've seen women coming back, actually shocked. There is a time I was at the airport and a plane from Renk had landed with people coming. And a woman comes with 6 or 7 children. She just arrives and stands, like she's literally stuck. She doesn't know where to start from. You expect to go to a relative's family, but the relative also is starving and is struggling with their own issues. When you come and you don't know home, who is going to show you? Nobody. So it is an issue that women were never prepared, and I don't think that the women of South Sudan, those who had ran to the Sudan before, they had run because of conflict, probably, or some were taken because maybe their husbands had that money and want them to stay in Khartoum. But now that conflict happened, they were forced to come back. So that one who had run away from conflict is coming back with a double trauma. And the other one who was living in a good life because they have money is coming back with another trauma. And her trauma is actually worse because it's monetary trauma. So, yeah. And then African problems, you see, even as Africans, I would say that without us to be, we are also being stupid. We are being stupid because we have left ourselves, our leaders, at least we need our people to sleep at peace. You've heard people say, some elderly people, when you tell them about the 1986, they'll tell you, don't take us back. Don't take us back to 1986 in Uganda. Because of the wars that they fought before that time, and when that time came, they came in. But unfortunately, the whole thing got spoiled again with the leadership that doesn't want to change. That is Uganda. As in South Sudan, since separation, we did not think of how do we organize ourselves. When we separated, we started enjoying, and the enjoyment was a very short-term one. And all of us, yes, it was very short, and people forgot actually what should be done. People went into buying vehicles, went into luxury. I heard of a case of 3 suits being brought in a whole container, sealed. And by the time it was opened, there were only 3 suits, 3 sealed. 3 suits sealed in a whole container. So that is extravagant. Which kind of suits are those? So these are resources that were wasted by individuals. We forgot to take care of our revenues. We left revenues.
Let the person wearing those suits speak.
But it's our money that bought the suits. Then you look at the revenues. We've left revenues uncontrolled. South Sudan is a country where you find that the government knows it very well that revenues that are collected and there is that chunk of money that goes to individuals. They know it very well that this money goes to so and so and so and so and so and so, and they fail to hold such people accountable. Whose money is that? That is the country's money that would have helped people. So so it is our own problem. As it is Africa, but then South Sudan, we've been so stupid with our own country. We have not thought